Here we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 66 of Midnight Poppyland. I'm the Story Tinker, and today we have Patty.
Hi, guys. Y'all know me. I've been here before. Really excited to talk about this episode. I feel like I got kind of lucky on this one because we talk a lot of psych stuff in this episode, and you know that's kind of my forte. So really excited to be here and talk about this episode again.
Yeah, I'm also definitely glad that you're here because I knew you would have a lot to say, so it's great. Yeah, this episode has a lot, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's intense. Like I had to take a couple of breaths after I was done reading it. I'm like, oh my God, like I could literally feel my heart pounding as I was reading it.
So I'll have to I'll tell you my thoughts when we get there because
oh yes,
yeah,
I want to know your thoughts.
Okay, so we start out with the car in the parking lot, the red car, famous red car.
Yeah, we all know who that is.
And we see Tora saying, "You're asking me what to do, boss," which already, like, I'm not the first one to like think of this, but him calling Quincy boss is like, it gives me a little bit of a pain in my heart because I'm like, he's not your boss, he's your friend.
Yeah. Well, and I think those boundaries are still kind of gray for him. Like I know that they have some very friendly banter, but I think this whole like, is he family? Is he friend? Is he in the organization? Like, is he your employee? Like, I don't know how well those boundaries have been set for Tora. And I imagine that it's kind of emotionally wrenching for him. Not that I want to go like deep dive into that, but I think, you know, it's interesting to see those dynamics kind of play out. But yeah, I think in this case, he's like, what do you want my opinion for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely curious about like the relationship between Tora and Quincy because in a way, Tora thinks he's the stupid one. And then, you know, Quincy throws that right back in his face. And, you know, he's tapping a cigarette meanwhile, and he says, "Come on, you're the brains around here. I'm just joining in on the fun." So like, where did he get this perception from? I mean, we can kind of guess like from everyone else, not necessarily Quincy per se, but like everyone else in the clan, except for like the higher ups, thinking that he's just the brawn. But it's sad to see, you know, him think of himself that way. Like,
yeah, and it's kind of interesting because, well, we know why, because I was thinking back to episode 36 when Vincent says something very similar to Tora, like, well, you're smarter than half these guys around me. You know why I keep you around me. And I could understand why Tora would kind of play it off then, because he doesn't really have that kind of relationship with Vincent like he does with Quincy. And so I'm with you there. I'm a little surprised that he's like playing that card here when he knows Quincy a little bit better. But maybe we could be reading too deep into it. But I thought it was really interesting that there was that echo from Quincy of like, hey, you're the brains around here.
right. And I'm sure their relationship probably unconsciously is tainted by Tora's relationship with Vincent.
Yeah.
I mean, I never want to paint Quincy as the bad guy, but he inherits a position that gives him a lot of power, and Tora and everyone else knows it. And even if Quincy never wants to wield that power, he has it, and it makes people relate to him in a certain way. And it's a scary position to be in, to be able to do things to other people that makes them scared of you and be on tiptoe around you, even if you are a nice guy.
Right. And on top of that, you know, you hit the nail on the head with the privilege that both Quincy and Vincent have. You know, they essentially pay people to do their dirty work for them. They are in that position of power, and they don't do the things that Tora does or his men do. I mean, if we look back at episode 13, at 12 and 13, where Quincy is kind of playing that act, he's putting on that face of, I can be Vincent for a day kind of thing. But then he turns around and like is throwing up in the garage because it was way too, like, it was too much for him. I don't know that Vincent would do something like that, but I think to Vincent, he likes to keep his facade up. He likes to look like the standard businessman, like, I'm an upstanding citizen, I'm just very powerful in what I do. Whereas Quincy, like, he doesn't buy into the ethos of the 𝗏𝗏𝗱𝗵 clan. like I don't feel like he really buys into it. He just plays the part when he has to.
So that's what got me curious, because I was honestly surprised that Quincy was able to do that last episode.
Right.
I know he did it for the first time, like when we first saw him, and I thought that was like the end of it for him. I thought that he was like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do it again. But I see, like, it's not. I see myself repeating patterns I've seen in my house. Like, I'm like my mom so much, in the good ways and in bad ways. And like, even if there's things that I don't want to do, it's natural to you. And like it's apparent now that Quincy has inherited these things from his way of his upbringing.
Right. He can put that mask on really quick and he can play the game, because what's really interesting, we find this a little bit later on in the episode, is that he said the dude gives him the heebie-jeebies. And I'm like, well, yeah, he gives me the heebie-jeebies, but you wouldn't know that from the last episode at all.
I thought so, because that glare that he gave him, that like super intimidating panel, that was like, Quincy was like onto something.
Yeah, like kind of picking up on his vibe. Yeah. But what's interesting, and damn you, Quincy, he's still looking good here. And Lily, you are killing me.
Oh,
this is not fair.
Yeah, I know. I didn't mention it, but like, oh my God, like, okay.
Jesus, I know.
I could go on a really long talk about how amazing.
I know.
Because
and I know how much you love Quincy.
this is literally my look. Like, I should be embarrassed to say this on the podcast, but I'm really not. Like, we stopped over in Amsterdam on the way here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to repeat what went through my head when I was walking around the airport. I was like, so tall, so pretty. I think I texted my friends. I was like, right? Those people are gods. This nation is gods. Like, it's just beyond ridiculously, like, it's, anyway.
You found yourself some real life Quincy's.
Like, I was online at the aquarium today with my kids, and I'm in Portugal now, right? And there were 3 blonde dudes behind me, and I look back and I'm like, they're hot as hell. I bet you they're Dutch. And I asked them, and they were Dutch. I'm like, I know, I just know. If they're gorgeous, if they're my look, they're Dutch.
Oh man, you have a type, Mindy, and that's okay.
No, I recognize beautiful people in all shapes, colors, and sizes, but there's something that turns my eye, and it's that.
And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. But like, as we're moving on through the panels, Quincy and Tora are, they're just having this kind of back and forth about how they're really suspicious of Gil, and kind of confirming what we were all thinking last episode. Like, what is the what with this guy, He says, and you were right on the money. That guy is suspicious as hell. He was watching me the entire time in that meeting just now. My God, he gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, yeah, there was some stare down contest going, but like I said, like, part of me was like, Quincy was holding his own in there. But I also kind of understand like what you were saying, that like he can kind of put that front on and they're kind of staring that stare down, and then like he could be kicking like the dickens underneath, Yeah,
I mean, to me, it was very clear, like, both of them were being overly nice last time. So it was clear that he was overcompensating. And just that one panel where they were both staring at each other, that was like their real, insides. Interesting. Okay, now I have a question for you. When Quincy gave him that look, do you think that was like an acting, intimidating on purpose look? Or do you think that was his genuine, like, Gil, you're stupid and I don't like you look?
You're talking about like right before he left, he kind of gave that backward glance and was like, everyone has to start somewhere, or was it before that?
Before, when Gil was signing, and like Gil, he looked up and he saw it and they were like staring at each other.
I kind of saw that as like the biggest game of chicken ever. Like, and the chicken is where like 2 cars are going at each other and one of them swerves last minute. And I feel like I think there is part of what you're saying that's right, because they're like playing niceties the whole time, and then when it comes down to signing the actual contract, they're like kind of like calling each other's bluff, like, who's gonna chicken out here? And so I mean, I personally read that as they were testing each other. But kind of coming back to this scene where Quincy's like, ooh, I don't know how I feel about this guy. Like, he creeps me out. it's like, okay, we're getting a different view on that. And I'm probably going to have to reread that scene based on this information now.
Yeah. And one thing that I didn't know was that I didn't know Tora was suspicious of him. Like that's our first indication.
Right. Well, and I wonder, this whole suspicion, like part of me wonders if this was just standard protocol, that like once Quincy signed that contract, like it's just standard, like we need to look into the people that you're getting involved with. Because I mean, even his last boss, Quincy's last boss, was kind of like, yeah, he was a jerk, but probably wasn't involved in anything kind of nefarious. It was a legitimate business. So you probably didn't have to do any looking around. But Tora strikes me as the type, especially with what's going on right now with the notebook. He's being very cautious about who they're getting involved with and how, especially with Poppy's safety in mind. This is even bigger, because now they have her involved. She knows that they're mob, and they have to be very cautious about how they move forward with this.
Yeah. I love how everything is like the web is like tightening, or the knots are tightening.
Yes. Like
it's all coming together.
Oof. Like they can't just worry about just Vincent knowing about her now, Shark knowing about her now. Now they have to worry about Gil knowing about their ties to the mob, and especially what we find out next.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
I know. So like this dead look in Tora's eyes in that next panel, he's just like, I feel like he's like turning the wheels in his head of like, what's our next move? Like he's already 10 steps ahead of Quincy and is just listening to Quincy babble.
That's so accurate.
Bless him. He's just letting him ramble, because Quincy's going on and he's like, anyway, I know you've done your homework, or you'd never make such a wild guess. So what's the dirt on our slimy little fish boy? And I was like, finally. It's like, finally, we're going to find out what this little shit has been up to.
I also like I know Emily has pointed out before that like Gil, Fishy, all that. And like, I like how, Quincy's or / Lily is giving us the like, that's why I named him Gil, and he's slimy. So
slimy little fish boy. It's a good visual for sure. But what's interesting is Tora, he pulls out a folder and he says, well, nothing much.
It's like a giant folder.
Right. Like to me, that's a lot of information, but I don't know, maybe they're used to people having longer rap sheets. He says, except for being tied to a much larger business before giant goldfish outside of 𝗟𝗻𝗄, which that's interesting. And then he says, and they folded after complaints filed by hundreds of customers, but not before allegedly scamming millions from them.
Wow.
So sounds like we've got a little bit of a schemer on our hands, which makes a lot more sense now. I'd always kind of wondered, because like Gil's always gone. Dude is always gone. He like, for somebody who runs that company, he's never there. For it being such a small company,
exactly. Yeah.
And I was like, if he's that small, and like back when I gave him the benefit of the doubt, I was like, well, maybe he had to get into some mob money to like keep his business afloat, like shit like that happens all the time. But I'm getting the sense that like now it's like, oh, what is this? And what have you gotten into? And who are you in bed with, Yeah,
I mean, hundreds of customers, millions of dollars, that's a lot. It's not like
that is
small, like
that
10
is not
people,
small.
whatever. Like it's big time.
That's like puts you on radar with not just the mob, but like police. The authorities, going across country lines, like.
Right. So how did Gil get away with that? Right.
Which
leads us to like Tora's, Quincy's suspicion.
Right.
Which I agree with, it's you can't easily get away with stuff like that. So, he's looking at the file, he whistles, he's like, damn, that's some dodgy shit. I feel like his shirt button is like getting lower and lower throughout every panel.
I think the button finally busted.
Right. By the way, I have a brother who like works out a lot, and he tells me he's like, he's actually he has a narrow frame, but like because he works out a lot, he's built it up, and he's like, I can't wear regular shirts anymore. I have to order custom because nothing fits me. And he's like, yeah, my buttons will pop because, you know, like my waist is so small and my chest is so big and whatever. So I'm like,
oh, that's hilarious.
He does have that look, like popping out of his shirt look.
Oh man, I love it. I love it so much. And his forearm and his hand, Jesus. Like, okay, I could go on about this, but I'm not going to, because we're not even a third of the way into the episode. Oh, God.
I mean, when the Quincey shibboleth outshadows the Tora shibboleth, you know that he's had a glow up.
Yes, the glow up is real. And of course, our Quincy, bless him, I think he recognizes the tense situation here, and he's trying to deflect with some humor. He's like, I've never been one for mystery, but this is kind of exciting. Now all we need are masks and capes with absolutely nothing underneath.
Oh, Quincy, we love it. That was fan service. That was for us.
That was totally fan service. And you know what? Thank you for that glimpse into his sex life, Lily. I can totally see him doing this.
SG number, whatever.
Right. Oh my God. But like, Tora's just like, no, fuck this. Like, shut the hell up, Quinston. I'm not in the mood for your bullshit.
Oh.
Oh man, shut him down.
I love the difference between the two of them. They're a little bit like yin and yang, you know, and then like the opposite attracts kind of thing, where like they tone each other out, you know. They each need each other.
Because Tora is too serious all the time.
Yeah, I bet he like. When you think to yourself, like, what does he do for fun? Like, what's fun? He probably doesn't even know what that is.
Right. Like, what do you mean? Like, hang out with Poppy and kiss her? That's fun. Oh God. And so of course, Quincy just gives him this like flatlined look, like, oh, God, not again. Like, since when were you ever in the mood, you humorless killjoy?
It's cute. I get a bit of the writer's like sense here, you know. That's a good phrase. It's descriptive.
Yeah. And you know, I can see that there's probably banter that Lily has in her head of like, this is what I would say to Tora because he's being too fucking serious right now and he needs to cool off. Oh God.
But then he decides he's like, okay, fine, serious business now, clan activity, you think? And Tora says, yeah, which is also like, that would make sense that is a way they got away with it. Right. That's literally what they do, get away with crime.
Yep. And they know how to cover stuff up, which is the next thing that he says. Like, they covered up real well. You know, whenever you find something that's kind of weird and like Tora said, like, there's this big thing that happened, but we don't have a lot of information on it. It means that records were scrubbed big time.
Yeah.
And that made me question, like, who is Gil involved with? Because that's some big time stuff. Like, small time clans, you're not going to be able to have that kind of pull and to be able to shut records up and things like that. But that takes a lot of influence and money, which makes me question, like, how big is this clan that he got involved in? Because it's clearly not the 𝗏𝗏𝗱𝗆 clan.
Right. So I think there are two theories, right, that like the fandom has. One is like 9 daggers and a possible Goliath connection. Like, people throw out all sides of theories, like Gil and Goliath and this and that. And then there's the other theory, which is like the LR, you know, 𝗨𝗨𝗱 clan that we just like got a glimpse of, which like, maybe it's Poppy's mom's clan. And it's like,
I mean, I honestly, at this point, I don't even know, because we just met this clan. We have no idea who they are, what they're for. Clearly they do. They have really nice tattoos. I am down with that. And like, I noticed that people have kind of made this connection between it and the brooch.
Yeah.
We remember the brooch is actually her dad's. It was an heirloom from her dad's side of the family. So I'm like, I don't see that theory really panning out, but there's a lot we don't know. Like, somebody in the Patreon comments mentioned today, you know, what if it's Quincy's mom's clan? You know, because if he's clan royalty, like, we would expect that his mom's clan would be just as big. So,
you know, that's also interesting because we haven't been told anything about Quincy's side, but we could assume that Tora and Quincy know a lot about it, like, even if we don't. So I wonder if that's like, that would be Tora's first step, or would it be like, oh, because they're, you know, they're married, they don't do this kind of stuff. Like they would know about it, like they tell each other what they do, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say. And I'm still like, jury is still out on who Vincent's wife is, because I'm still not convinced that it was arm candy from episode 5.
Yeah. She doesn't strike me as the wife. Like she didn't feel like she was in their life enough. Like
Right. And I'm wondering, like, there's part of me, of course, this is the morose part of me that's like, is Quincy's mom not alive?
Yeah, she doesn't seem alive. He never talks about her. He doesn't talk about going to her. I always assumed she was dead. Like,
yeah, and that's possible.
I feel like Quincy is the kind of person who, if his mom was alive and a normal person, like if she wasn't like, I don't know, like very emotionally unhealthy, I feel like he would have a very close relationship with his mom, because he seems like a mama's boy, like a sweetie pie. You know?
Yeah, which makes me wonder about his mom. Like, again, I know that we'll probably get that question answered down the line. it's very up in the air right now. And there's still questions about Poppy's mom. We don't know much about her either. So,
but I will say my theory is, and I don't know, again, like take it with a million grains of salt. I feel like Quincy feels like he had one normal parent figure. Like the impression I get from Quincy's emotional well-being is that, you know, dad messed up, but like he seems emotionally well adjusted enough to have had one parent who was there for him, who was caring, who validated him.
Right. Like, where did he learn that from?
Now, right.
Yeah.
He's too healthy to have been raised by like 2 psychotic parents or one psychotic parent.
Let's hope for his sake that wasn't the case. So then we get this mention from Quincy. He says, well, good call not going up to the office with me today. And I'm like, yeah, that was probably a good move. He said, if he isn't already on high alert after seeing me, he most definitely will be with you around. Yeah, because I think Tora just kind of gives off that vibe. I mean, just look at how Erdine reacted to him the first time they met. And like Gil is already skittish, so like he would have been super skittish after something like this.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so he's like, for all that benevolent act he puts on, the man's sharp as an knife, especially given how he's managed to remain hidden for weeks. Which is interesting, because in the beginning, like I will say, like I thought Gil was like neutral guy. Like I didn't see, until we had the whole notebook thing.
Oh yeah.
I didn't have any reason to suspect him.
Yeah, I thought he was just a doofus. But I mean, there was parts of me that's like, why haven't we seen or heard from his wife, or things like that? Like just little things that would crop up that seemed inconsistent, or like, why would Gil be going through his employees' things? Because like the only reason I have somebody like my boss go through my things is if they call and ask me where something is, you know. And I was just like, that's kind of weird. Okay, but like I'll put that in the back pocket. But it was nothing like overt, like dude is a psycho, you know.
Right.
But yeah, like apparently he's been out and about for weeks on end and clearly dodging Quincy. And this panel right here where Tora and Quincy are just kind of staring off into space, didn't that give you an ominous feeling? Like, oh, we're about to talk about something really uncomfortable here.
Yeah, they both have very rigid, you know, jawlines and completely somber. They're very much mirroring each other. Like they look exactly the same. And when Quincy gets serious like that, it's serious.
Yeah, you know it's bad. And so Quincy breaks the uncomfortable ice and he's like, so you finally circled back around to that damn notebook, huh? Which I think here we can safely assume that Tora suspects that Gil has the notebook and has read it. Because they haven't found it in Poppy's possession. She doesn't know anything about it outside of I don't even think she knows that she picked it up by accident, you know? And so they're like, well, I guess it's kind of swinging back around to that. And of course, Tora doesn't answer. He just kind of keeps plotting. I think he's still in scheming, plotting mode. And then the frame tilts. We go back outside the car. The frame tilts. And this is something that I've noticed Lily has been doing lately with tense scenes, is she tilts the frame and then she darkens the edges, like the edges of the frame creep in. It also almost makes it claustrophobic.
That's such a cool observation.
Yeah. And like Quincy says, are you going to wait for him to make his next move? Or are you gonna, and look how dark the panel is. We don't even see Tora in this moment. And I've never seen Quincy quite looking this deadly, and he makes a finger gun, right? Which
also is hilarious.
Yes, it's hilarious because I'm like, dude, whatever. You don't even know how to operate a gun. I guarantee it. Like, I can't even see him doing this. But like, he clearly knows what Tora does, or to the extent. I think it's really funny that like we have this really dark scene, this really dark panel, and then he's like, pew pew. And I'm
like, are you 5, Quincy?
I mean, I think in some ways emotionally he definitely is 5. But
yeah, I think that's the paradox of Quincy, right? Like, he's a boy who is, in many ways, like you said, a boy, right? Like the fact that he called him a boy. In many ways, he has that emotional immaturity, and he is like a soft, tender person, but he grows up in this violence clan. So the fact that he knows that the first thing that a violent clan member would think of is to just off Gil,
right?
It's like, that's because of his environment, and like he can't even get himself to like be real and like admit the truth of what possibly could happen. Like, he has to soften the blow and make it like a, a step removed, make it childish, make it like harmless seeming.
Yeah, for sure. And like, in terms of like what I think their next move is going to be, I think Tora is going to, kind of play the long game out here. He's going to wait and see what Gil pulls. He's going to gather more information. So
that last thing you were saying, that he's very calculated.
Yeah, he's going to think this through. He's not going to just flippantly be like, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to go guns a-blazing at Giant Goldfish. And I think he also doesn't want to do that because of Poppy too, because that would raise suspicion on her.
Right. And she would probably also distance her from him. Just knowing about a theoretical, like, okay, he's in the mafia, so I'm sure he's done X and X. It's very different than like seeing it happen, or like know it in real time.
Yeah, and we've already seen like he's trying really hard to restrain his violence in front of her, and so I can't see him just out and going and doing that,
right,
much as we might want him to.
Now, my first thought was also like, killing someone just means you don't have any information, like you want to understand the bigger picture, and like who's connected to who, and who told what, and who knows what. Like, killing someone means the information dies with them.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot you don't know. And I think, let's give some credit to Tora, because I seriously doubt he enjoys killing people.
Right.
I can't see that. He does it because he has to, not because he wants to.
Right, that too.
Will probably be a theme that comes up later on. I'm sure. Yeah. I know, foreshadowing, Jesus. But anyway, we cut forward back to Giant Goldfish, and Poppy's clacking away at her computer. And poor thing, she's just out of sorts. She's like, shoot, I've typed the same sentence 3 times. First my spreadsheet, and now my email. And then we land on this panel where her hands are paused, and like, I'm not joking, like with the way that her distraction and her anxiety is, like I could feel, because I've been in that situation where like I've been so distracted and anxious that like my hands are kind of shaking when I'm paused like that. And so that's kind of what I felt there when I saw that panel. And at first, like when we were in the last episode and she was like, something's not tabulating correctly, and because we were all suspicious of Gil, I was like, oh, well, clearly something's up with the books, maybe Gil's cooking the books and something's not adding up, and she's finding out. But we actually find out that like what's going on is Poppy can't focus. She is so keyed up. She's like, I can't focus on anything today. And here we have the darkened panels again, like the spotlight is on her, and like her heart rate is going up. She's like, it's like ba-dum, 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 and she's like looking back at Gil's office. Her heart rate's increasing, and like, poor thing, she's still trying to type. She's like still trying to stay on task. And like, I've been there where like my anxiety is ramping up and I am trying to do anything to distract myself, and like, okay, I'm just going to keep working. And that's, I think that's what she's trying to do here.
Yeah, and like her vision is like kind of closing in on her. Like she's
Yeah.
sort of blacking out. You know, I know that people, people's emotions can affect their physical sensations. And but yeah, I mean it's a
Oh,
tough
for sure.
thing for Poppy.
For sure. Because like when you're anxious like that, it feels like, the physical, like, in your mind that the physical space is the same, but it feels
Mhm.
closed in almost, and like the way you're experiencing the space is different.
Mhm.
And poor thing, she's just still trying to focus, and she's got little sweat marks on her now, and she's still trying to type away, and oh
Yeah,
my
she's a
goodness.
diligent worker. Like
I
she is
know.
conscientious, she has this moral, like this is, yeah, I mean, she's like this, I must do something. I'm getting paid to do a job. I have to do it. I have to do it well.
Right.
She's,
Right.
that's a really great quality that she has.
Yeah, I think just everything that's happened over the last 3 to 4 weeks has really finally caught up with her, and
Yeah.
especially yesterday, like holy crap, that was intense.
Yeah.
And then freaking Gil pops up out of freaking nowhere, because like this whole, like, what is it, like 10 panels were like really focused on Poppy's feeling, and then it's like
Boom.
I freaked out here too, because I was like, who the hell's behind her? I'm like, ah. So like I freaked out with Poppy here too. And he's like, whoops, did I scare you? Ha ha ha. And I'm like, jerk.
Shut up,
Of
Gil.
course you did. And Poppy's like, yeah, you sure did.
Her
Oh
face is so
gosh.
cute there. That's like
I
the
know.
most like Poppy's usually a very positive person, and like she's been open with like Tora about her like more negative feelings.
Right,
But
right.
which, that I think is something that Poppy honestly probably needs to work on as a person, that like to be able to express not just the optimistic side of her personality. Because and I totally, it's a trait I relate to, because I am an optimistic person, and I feel bad anytime I express negative emotion. I'm like, no, let's go back to being positive. Let's go back to being positive. So I, but it's not healthy to stuff down your negative feelings. You have to
Right. And there's a balance with it. Like you don't want to be all negative all the time either. Like you don't want to be on either end of the spectrum, because on one hand you have toxic positivity where it's like everything must always be kitten farts and rainbows, and then on the other end it's like, woe is me, my heart is blacker than your black, like just like stuff like that. You got to find like somewhere in the middle, because I know like I tend to be on the other end of the spectrum where I'm a little more negative, but I also know that can be really toxic too. And so just finding somewhere in the middle where she feels like she can positive or healthily express her anger and her negative emotions, but also not be consumed by them. And I think that's really going to be a huge character arc for Poppy, because she likes to stuff things down.
Yeah. And here's where I want to interject, like that, hearing you say that you tend to the other side. I wanted to say, like, when I was reading all this, like intellectually, I know that people have described feeling like this, but I realize I'm a very, very much not an anxious person. Like I cannot think of a single time I've ever felt this way. And I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky that I was spared like these feelings. I have plenty of other feelings that like other people don't have, I think, to compensate. Like, don't worry. But, like this is not one of them. And it's just, anyway, I always feel very lucky because I'm like, I don't relate at all. So
well, and everyone's threshold is different, I think. So for somebody who like Tora, who has grown up in a very hardened environment, like it takes more to make him anxious and scared. Whereas someone like Poppy, who's never experienced the things that he has, like it's easier for her to scare. This just hasn't been her life. So I think that's actually a great segue into, why she starts thinking about this kind of going ahead. But like kind of coming back to the episode, one of the things we notice is that Gil has got his smiley ass demeanor back on. Like, and like, I know that we've been cued into some information that he's being fake here and that he's being complimentary just to kind of, skeet out the door. Right. But Poppy's putting on a face here too. Cause like she's kicking like the dickens underneath, but she's like, nope, gotta be presentable and and professional for my boss. You know, and I find it interesting because she's like, hey, are you leaving already? Because like clearly Gil's on his way out the door. And she's like, I thought I'd catch up with you on that new magazine format proposal. And he says, no, it's fine. I've gone through your pitch and it's good to go. Which it's interesting to me that, like, you know, he leaves her out of like one of the biggest deals that Giant Goldfish has ever landed, right? And she was pivotal in landing this deal. And he just is like, oh, I'm going to say in passing, like, hey, by the way, thanks for clinching that deal for us, Poppy. That was great. Like, that's what you say when you're like, hey, thanks for getting that report in on time. Not like, oh my God, we're going to be in the black because of you.
And also like a new magazine format proposal. I mean, that's something that needs to be discussed. It's not something you say like, oh, I read it and I like it. Like, she's also a new worker. If she was your like senior editor who'd been working with you for years, yeah, maybe you don't have to have that level of oversight. But like a new magazine format is a pretty big deal, I think.
Right.
You know?
I agree. And he's just like, oh, brushing it off like it's no big deal. So that tells me like clearly he's like, I need to get the heck out of here. I don't want to keep this conversation going, kind of thing. Just let you do what you want.
It's also morning, like it's Quincy said he came in early, right? So like he just came in, he's never around, and he's already leaving.
Right. Like, dude, y'all not making enough money, just be bouncing out there after like maybe 30 minutes worth of work.
Right?
Sorry, dude, this is another one of those things where like the staff are working harder than upper management. I'm sure we can all relate. But you know, he sits there and he kind of does this placating, like, thanks for clinching that deal for us, Poppy. You really are Wonder Girl, huh? And I'm just like, dude, shut up. Like, I've read your inner thoughts. Shut the hell up.
You could just see like underneath what he's probably thinking. It's like,
God, I like, me and Christina Egan, we were talking, like, just want to pluck his chin hair.
That
son of a bitch.
I am a I love plucking. Like, I tweeze my eyebrow. I love. I am so happy with a pair of tweezers in my hand. Let's just say, like, I'm a little disgusted by Gil, but I'll do it. Okay,
right?
Like, I'm sure we would all do it.
Like, geez, oh my gosh, that's gonna be the legend of this comic, is us complaining about his hairs.
Yeah.
Bless her, Poppy. She's just like, just doing my job. Think nothing of it. Poppy, quit downplaying your accomplishments. You're a boss.
Yeah, and she had.
But I think
her face is also very overcompensatory.
I think oh yeah, I think she's ready for this conversation to be over.
Right. Yeah, she probably doesn't have the emotional energy to engage in anything right now. So yeah, I guess it's like, bye. Like, they're both like trying to get out of there.
Right. Like, we have conversation, but like, can it be over now? And that's exactly what he does. He moves right along.
So continuing where we left off, we have Gil, who is giving Erdine much more attention than he gave Poppy. And he clearly is not triggered by her at this moment in time. And he's like, keep me posted on the 𝗟𝗏𝗱 layout. Can't wait to check it out. Which, you know, Poppy had this whole magazine presentation layout for him. And he's like, oh, it was fine. Let's not talk about it. But
right.
Like this one article layout, he's like, yeah, let's discuss it.
Yeah, he's totally like bypassing Poppy, because we talked a little bit about how he wanted to end that conversation and wanted to kind of move along with his day. And then we were talking about how like this guy works like maybe half an hour and he's already on his way out the door. Like, dude, no wonder your company's tanking. You don't ever work.
So I wonder what he's doing, because like Erdine says, oh, I will do it. I know how you do it, Gil. Keep on top of things with that schedule. Make sure to take time off. So what is he doing when he's not in the office? Like, do you think he's actually trying to do some legit publishing? Because they're not sitting around doing nothing. Like, they must be publishing something. Otherwise,
right.
You know, but like, is he doing that all day? Is he trying to like make up for all the lost money that he owes people that they're held? Like, what's he doing all day?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I don't really know, but apparently, like, I guess Erdine, by this standard, it sounds like he has a packed schedule, or at least he has like phantom meetings or something on his schedule. I don't know. because she seems to think he's working hard. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell you're doing. You're very vague about what you do.
Yep. It's
So,
like when sorry, some of my friends, when they date guys who like don't really have jobs, they like also write some super vague thing. Like they say something super vague about what they're doing, and it's like, doesn't sound like you're working, bro.
like, yeah, and I think I get that impression here big time, big time. But he's like kind of like hitting all the stops, because Emily was saying, you know, like, hey, do you notice that like he's making a point to touch base with all of the employees right before he heads out? He's being very casual. Like even his conversation with Jacob is very like, hey sport, did you catch the game? Are you gonna catch the game? Like, okay, that's a very awkward conversation to have. Like, and I'm still sitting here thinking, like, why would you be like meeting with the team and being like, hey guys, we got to be all hands on deck, this is a huge client, like we need to like hit all the stops. But I mean, they don't know this, but we obviously suspect him because we've seen and heard inside his head, and we know what kind of a jackass he is. So it's just like it makes every move that he makes suspicious at this point.
I was thinking the same thing, because like he clearly is making an effort to have a good team spirit there, and until now Poppy seemed very happy. Until today, she didn't show any signs of being suspicious about Gil.
Right.
She seemed to really enjoy her workplace. So I don't know, do you think it's just like part of being, you know, part of his show, or is he like in some ways a little bit emotionally intelligent and like he does know how to get people like to go along with him?
Well, I mean, if we base it on the information that we have from Tora, that tells me like if he knows how to swindle people out of millions of dollars, then he probably knows how to like keep things on the DL with his people. Like he knows how to put that face on and like smooth talk and whatnot. Like I'll be honest, and I know we talked about this before, but I didn't really suspect Gil up until like the notebook came into play. And I was like, okay, dude's read the notebook. I'm not so sure how I feel about this guy now. But prior to that, I just felt like he was just the biggest doofus. So he duped me too. So I could see how the rest of his employees wouldn't see that.
Yeah. And now that you mention it, I don't think we discussed this. What do you think he's going to do with the notebook? Now that we know he may be involved in clan activities, before that we were like, okay, he just might have wanted it for the money. But now that we know he probably did clan stuff before, what's going to happen?
I mean, it's a really, like, we've already seen once before when somebody found information, they sold it to the police.
Well, velvet suits. Do you think Gil is going to show up in tacky suits?
Oh God, if he does, Jesus, I will never let him live it down. I will say that. But I really think he's going to use it as leverage down the line. Like this is me thinking long game. When he finds out about Quincy and Tora and Poppy's involvement with them, I think he's going to use that as leverage. Because one of the things we don't know is that, you know, is Tora mentioned in that notebook? Like Quincy, I don't think is, because he was like, I couldn't find anything on Quincy. But we don't know that Tora is not mentioned in it. And we've already known that Goliath has turned in Tora before. I wouldn't put it past him to put his name in that notebook.
Okay, so I have a theory, which I don't know if you've heard, that Goliath turning Tora in may have been part of him getting Tora out of the clan. Because the fact that Goliath wanted out of the clan, I'm taking that as an indication that he's done with that life and he wants a better life for himself. And maybe him doing that was a way of helping Tora get out. And maybe, you know, we know he has maybe some connection with Lane, maybe he's an informant, maybe this was like both of their way to get out. Maybe he couldn't tell Tora for whatever reason, I don't know. But so in that case, maybe he wouldn't have written about Tora. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but like part of my brain is like, oh shit, it's possible that his name is in there. And I'm thinking like, damn, I'm really glad Tora didn't go up there that day. Like, oh, that could have been really bad.
So Gil is definitely smarter than the dollar store Jared Leto. Like he won't just sell it and use the money to buy fun like stuff.
Yeah, he'll hang on to it. He'll use it for the long game. So I think it's really going to be, because we know that Tora also plays the long game. And so I think it's going to be who can outsmart who and who can like get a leg up on who in this case. But I just honestly, it makes me even more nervous for Poppy because she is totally stuck in the middle of all of this. So yeah,
really ramping up the intrigue.
I know.
I'm not gonna say no more fluffy kisses, but there's gonna be stuff in between the fluffy kisses.
Oh my God. So Gil leaves, right? So he's headed out the door. He's like, see y'all, I've worked my 30 minutes for the day. Bye. And we go back to Poppy's perspective and the door clicks. And you know what's funny? Like yesterday when we were recording this part, I didn't notice that even here in this one panel, the depth of field gets kind of wonky. Like the door seems really far away. And Poppy, like when we go to the next panel, she just has this really like worried look on her face. Like she's not really sure what's happening. And I think this is kind of where she's alone with her thoughts again, which for her can be kind of dangerous. And she's like, this is so weird. She's thinking this in her head. And she's looking around. And we notice that like the frame starts closing in, the panels start to get darker around the edges, and we're kind of spotlighting on Poppy. And you had mentioned last time that like the cool tone and the darkening tones.
The windows are also completely black, even though it's the middle of the, beginning of the day. It's really quite sunny out there.
Right. And like you look at Erdine and she looks so far away. Like that depth of field again is kind of wonky. And she looks over to Jacob and he looks just as far away. It's like everything is like, it kind of reminds me of those like sci-fi movies where like they're moving through space, and as they're stretching out, like the space is just getting larger and larger. It just weirds people out. But like you can actually feel this way. It's a kind of dissociation, derealization. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But she says, Erdine and Jacob are right here, but it feels like there's some kind of veil between us, almost like they're not really here.
This is also, to me, like even very sad because these are her friends and people that she should be able to rely on. And at this moment of kind of like a little bit of a crisis for her, she feels like she can't even reach out to them, like physically, even it looks like, and which we'll see later. So.
Right. Like they feel far away emotionally and physically. And it's kind of this moment where she's like, is this some kind of delayed stress response to what happened yesterday? And like, and I said this in my analysis, I was like, yes, this is a delayed stress response, because she's had a lot happen to her yesterday, not just like yesterday, but like all of the last month, like the entirety of the comic. She's had so many things happen to her. She's gotten wrapped up in this world that she's not familiar with. You brought up the fact that like she moved to a new big city, and that's all very stressful. Even if they're good things, they can still be stressful.
I just remembered the fact that not just the whole gang stuff, even applying for jobs and getting rejected and financial stress, like that is a killer. Having like to worry about money. Like, whoa, this girl is dealing with a lot.
I know. So like, I get really frustrated with people when they're just like, oh, Poppy, like, I don't understand why she does this, or why she hesitates with Tora, or why she does, like, do you have any idea what it's like to live inside her head? Well, I'm really glad that we're getting this, because it kind of gives us a glimpse as to like just what she's dealing with. And she's sitting there like in a place where she should feel calm, should feel safe. Like this is her workplace, right? She's felt safe here before. And all of a sudden it feels unsafe, like we're looking at it like this very ominous moment. And when she talks about the delayed stress response, one of the things we know about Poppy is that she kind of stuffs things down and doesn't want to feel them in the moment. Like she's a I mean, if you believe in this kind of stuff, she's a classic Pisces. Like, let me not think about this. Let me just like tune it out. I'll get done what needs to get done, and then I'll deal with it later. And a lot of people are like this. So, you know, and also I want to point out that like all of the things that Poppy has gone through, she's really not had space or time to think about it and to recover from it. You know, it's been go, 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 go since she met Tora. And, you know, now that she finally has space to think and breathe and not be in the thick of all of it, her mind is going 90 miles an hour. And, you know, some people are like, well, you know, I don't get it. Like, why wouldn't you feel stressed in the moment? Well, because when we're going through the thick of the trauma or the event or whatever it is, like our brains go into tactical mode. It's like we turn on and we're like, okay, let's get the thing done, or hey, let's get to safety. And then when things cool off, that's when you start thinking about it retrospectively, which is what we kind of see here with Poppy. So we start getting like little flashbacks of the guy in the alleyway that approached her, that drunk dude.
Like even that one incident is enough to scare someone forever.
Yeah, like I would be like, hell no, like I'm running the hell out of here. And that's what she does, thank God. But like she just went from like, I mean, if you think about yesterday, all she was planning to do was apply for jobs, right? And then she got pulled into meeting with Ben. And then Ben got into that scuffle with those thugs. Those thugs chased them. Then she ends up in the alleyway. Then she ends up in another alleyway with Tora and still dealing with these other thugs. And she has a lot of feelings and emotions that she's dealing with Tora, however good they may be. But having all of those things happen in such close proximity is a lot for one person to handle. And so, you know, that now that she's going back and thinking about it, like she's even saying to herself, I feel calm, even though I should be feeling shaken.
I find it funny that she's using the word calm to describe her way she's feeling now, because to me it's more like you're shutting down. I don't know if that calm is the right way to say it.
Yeah, and I think when people, you know, I don't know how much therapy Poppy has done, probably none. But I think people will often mistake different emotions and stuff. So like, I agree with you. I feel like she's kind of mentally shutting down right now. And it's triggering her limbic system, because our mind doesn't know the difference between a memory of something and the actual event happening. And so when we replay it in our minds, we start to have the same feelings and things that bother us about it. And like, we're now in a safe space where we can freak out about it, essentially. And so that's what she's doing. And that shutdown is actually a trauma response. Not everybody gets amped up. Some people just completely emotionally shut down. And I think she's kind of halfway between them right now. Because she's thinking about everything that happened between her and Tora. We're getting more flashbacks to this. And she's sitting there, she's saying what I've been thinking all along, like, have I been stuffing down my fear unknowingly? And I'm like, yeah, probably.
And I'm so happy that she's self-aware enough to see this.
Yes.
Like, this is good. You know, but the first step of helping yourself is identifying what the problem is.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
The fact that she's able to articulate it, like, this is, to me, you know, because a lot of, well, every story is going to work with characters dealing with challenges. And, you know, Poppy has many different challenges, but I'm happy that this is not going to be one of them right now. Like, it doesn't seem like, it seems like she's going to start taking the steps to heal herself and to like think about things. So I'm just happy about that.
Yeah. Because I think, especially for somebody who tends to avoid things, or they're a chronic avoider, kind of stuffing, and for them to admit that is huge. And to start recognizing it is huge. And it's a positive thing, even if when she acknowledges it, her anxiety starts to ramp up.
So yeah. Anyway, so now she's looking at Jacob, and you know, she's like, the first image of him is faded. So, that's like kind of like she's blacking out a little bit. And, then she sees him more clearly and she thinks to herself, Jacob, and she tries to say something, but she says, crap, my voice is stuck in my throat. And her hand is trembling. And Dean next to her is saying like Pops, but it's very, very faded, like she's not hearing her. And she's like, Poppy. She still doesn't hear her. She's just looking in the distance, sweating. She's really not doing well. And then finally we have, Erdine standing up, hands on her hip. She's like, Poppy land. And now we see that, for Erdine, life is normal. She has the, the regular bright office space that we're used to. Not experiencing whatever shutdown Poppy is experiencing. And she just sees Poppy like zoned out.
Yeah, oh man, like when I was reading through this, even the first and second time, I was like, girl, like I recognized it because that faded out kind of visual and, kind of getting your voice caught in your throat, like, and sweating and trembling, like those are all symptoms of a panic attack. And so I was like, she's finally acknowledging that some of the stuff she's gone through is stressful. And when we go through something like that, it kind of trips that part of our limbic system that's like, okay, freak out time. And so I think that's kind of what's going on here. And she's not used to this because she strikes me as a very resilient person. And so she's probably like, what the hell is going on with me? And that's what a lot of people go through when they experience their first panic attack. I went through that myself. And like she doesn't quite hear and she's kind of zoned out, and when Erdine kind of catches her too, one of the things that I find interesting is like when she finally acknowledges Erdine, she's still in that kind of like dazed mode. And thank goodness, like Erdine recognizes like, are you okay? Like, hey, what's going on? Like she's checking in with her like a good friend does. But that can be kind of hard.
She's like a nice older sister, Erdine. She's such a great character.
Yeah. I love Erdine too. She's so great. She's a good big sister figure in this, I think. But Poppy, like when she comes back up out of it, Erdine says, I thought I heard you sobbing or something. And she's like, oh, you must be hearing things. And I'm like, Poppy. Why? I get it. Nobody wants to have a panic attack in front of their coworkers. Like that actually makes it worse most of the time. But poor thing. She's just like, I can't think about this right now kind of thing. And so she's stuffing it back down like she usually does.
That big smile pasting on her face.
Yeah. And I'm like, but she says something before this, and like she thinks this in her mind before she says anything to Erdine. She's like, or am I feeling so disoriented? And then when we hit the other panels, we've got darkened, weird vibes from Gil. And she's kind of recounting, him coming up from behind her, just having very casual talk, kind of dismissing her. So I think like, I know people are like, well, is it because she's having delayed stress response? Is it Gil? And I'm like, I think it's both, because Poppy seems really intuitive. She can read people pretty well. Otherwise, I don't think she would have trusted Tora the way that she has. Yeah. And the fact that she's having second thoughts about Gil and noticing that he's acting weird, like I would be nervous about that too. Like, why is this guy, what's going on? He's not acting like he usually does.
Notice also that the perspective for the shots with Gil are much, much, much more narrow and constrained than the guy with the alley.
Yes.
And I also just thought, I realized, the guy with the alley is a one-time thing. Like if she doesn't go back there, she'll never see him again,
Right.
Gil, she has to come to work with every day. So if she has an off feeling with Gil, that's a lot more relevant to her life.
Yeah. Because that's her boss. That's somebody she sees every single day. And like, if they're acting weird,
except for 30 minutes.
Gosh. Ay. So, she says, is there something strange about Gil? And thank goodness, like, she's like, okay, I need to go grab some coffee. I need to get some fresh air. And I'm glad that she offers that to Erdine, like, instead of Erdine being the one to ask, that she's reaching out for help, which is great. It's huge.
Right. So maybe, like her instinctive reaction is like, oh no, everything's fine. But I'm kind of hoping that she plans to like say something to Erdine. It could be that she just wants to, like you said, get some fresh air and like talk about something else. But I'm hoping maybe in her mind she was like, okay, I should talk to her.
Yeah, because they've had heart-to-hearts before, and that really helped her, I think. So I could see them doing that again. Unfortunately, we get a text message. And I say unfortunately because we find out later what it is, but Erdine, being the teasing big sister that she is, she's like, ooh, you got a text message, Pops. Who could it be? And like, I just hear her teasing voice in this, and I was just like, oh, thank God, a little comic relief.
Yep. I bet her next line was going to be like, shouldn't really say this on the podcast, but like, is that a dick pic from Tora? Sorry, I can't believe I'm saying these things a year ago. The things that cross my mouth now.
It's okay. It's all for the love. It's all for the love. We're all exploring things and finding out new things about ourselves through this comic.
And I'm glad my mother does not listen to this podcast.
Right. Like, don't listen. Don't ever listen, Mom. Stay off, Mom.
She's not interested.
So as much as I would love to believe that this is a dick pic from Tora, it is indeed not. She says, I don't know, which, and then we get a shot of her phone, and it's an unknown number. And I was like, oh, like that's never good.
The backdrop of like pink unicorns. Very cute. Very cute.
I love that. And so she's looking, and we know it's not good because she's pausing. She's like, oh, and that look on her face is not good either. She's like, great, more stress.
Like everything behind her goes black.
Yeah. It's like closing in again. And the text message says it's from Julri. Your granny's in the hospital now. You might want to come see her. And I was like, like, I think Poppy's been through enough, damn it. I love this comic, but I'm like, can this girl get a damn break?
Wouldn't be exciting to watch her get a break, would it? You're like,
I guess not.
To lie in my bed for 3 episodes.
Oh gosh. Like, and part of me is like, is this really Julri? Or, is he texting her from a different number? Or did she just delete his number? Because like, I could see that she would delete his number because like he's her ex, and like, screw you, Julri, you're a jerk. I could see that. So maybe that's it. I don't want to read too much into this, but part of me was a little afraid, like, is this somebody else with nefarious intentions that is trying to lead her away from her protectors? Right. Because if it is somebody with nefarious intentions, they know that she's involved with Tora, they know that she's involved with Quincy, and they are her protection right now. And what better way than to lure her away to her hometown where she feels safe and comfortable and unguarded,
I wonder also if I think you mentioned this yesterday, but now that I'm thinking, maybe it's like specifically Moonbright because of the notebook, and like maybe Goliath appearing there. Maybe there's someone who saw the notebook, saw her pick up the notebook, and is like kind of wants to follow that thread also.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that Tora was the only one to see her there that day. Like, oh man, that makes my head spin a little bit.
I had a tinfoil theory. It could be Poppy's mom reconnecting with her.
Oh man. Oh man, I think it's going to be a little bit yet before we get any more information on Poppy's mom. Like, if we do, I think it's going to be through like relatives or something like that. Because also, I'm really hoping that Granny is okay. Because like, even if this is all true, like, let's play the tape through. If this is true, Granny's in a bad way, and it's still stressful for Poppy. And I'm like, oh, God, Granny, no, you are not allowed to die. Damn it.
So some people were mentioning, they were like, okay, assuming whether or not she really is in the hospital,
yeah,
they wanted her to go and take Tora with her to meet Granny, which is like, that's the encounter we all want.
I would love that. I would love that, but I have a sneaking suspicion after all of those kisses, we are going to pay for them dearly, because Lily, I believe, has decided that she is not done stomping on our hearts, but I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I do hear that.
Oh,
but
God.
Yeah, and also like, so I'm curious if what Poppy's reaction will be like next episode. And I'm kind of assuming she's going to try to call her cousins, Danae and Mirabel, but they're flight attendants, so it's very likely that they will not be able to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
I wonder if Lily had that in mind, like way back when she was scripting this, and it's like, what's a plausible way for them to be like not available? You know, I wonder if that was why they're flight attendants.
Right. It's a good call, because you would want somebody that travels a lot, and flight attendants, they're all over the place all the time. So, and you know, they're spicy little ladies, and I love. I think it's so funny that, and this is just something I've noticed recently, like Poppy is, you know, she's an innocent character, but she has kind of a spicy side to her, is how I would describe it. And you notice this because she surrounds herself with other spicy people, like Danae, Mirabelle, or Dean. I mean, they just kind of like, I don't know if they gravitate towards her or what it is, but I just kind of love that, because I'm like, it shows like what the other side of you is really like. And I think a lot of people underestimate Poppy's character, and knowing like who she is as a person is very multifaceted. She's not just the girl next door character. I think like all of us, we have different sides to us. Like the cutesy stuff that she wears, like I'm wearing a Studio Ghibli shirt today, like, and I'm 36 years old, and I'm like, well, you know, sometimes you just like, and you know, you enjoy wearing that kind of stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're immature or that you're young minded. So I think like if we look beyond the surface of that, we can see some interesting things about Poppy's character. But I'm getting far off topic, so
Poppy's never off topic, but yeah.
Oh, I know. But like swinging back around to the episode, I think like I really hope overall that this text message ends up being a good thing for her, but something tells me like the stress is not done yet.
Yeah, no. I think the anxiety and the like action is just ramping up. I mean, this is the beginning of season 2. Like it's not, there's no denouement yet. It's going up.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, and hey, what do you know? It's 3:30 in the afternoon. Maybe Gil did work a full day.
Where's 3:30? That's funny. Yeah.
I guess. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So maybe there was a time jump between the meeting and the
maybe. You know what? You could be right. It could be a time jump. I could see that. Oh goodness. Speaking of jumps, just when I thought we were done, like I fully expected to have Lily's credits run here. I was like, all right, cool, cliffhanger, we're done. But Lily's not done stomping on us yet. She's like, nope, I'm gonna ratchet up the anxiety just a little bit more for you. And so we go back to Gil's perspective, and it's very dark again with these visuals. And Gil's thinking about a memory that he has. And it sounds like somebody's speaking to him. They're like, work. That's all you ever do. What have you accomplished, Gil? Nothing. Freaking nothing. And we see this memory of him with what I'm presuming is his wife. They're like sitting across from each other. Looks like wife is not too happy with him, and he's trying to ignore her. And she's like, we're now living in fear of being caught after that harebrained scam you pulled. And those friends of yours are still hounding us, hounding me. So here we get confirmation of everything that Tora was talking about, all the information that he was able to dig up. It seems like, yep, this is true. Gil's been into some shady damn business prior to all of this. And it makes me think, like, and I know we talked about this earlier, like, who is he involved with? You know, like, how is this such a big deal? Like, stealing millions is no small feat. Going across country lines is no small feat. And I'm just like, oh gosh, like this just makes the tension that much worse.
Yeah. And also the thing that this brought home to me was like the emotional pressure that he's under, because to have, I know we might disagree slightly on this, but to have your wife, you know, give you that kind of like it's hard. It's really hard to hear that from your wife. And like, I do think that I mean, I think he seems like a very selfish person, but he still is married. And I think he does care about the relationship. And even if he doesn't, like, even if he's a selfish bastard, like, it's still not easy to go home every day and have someone criticize you and yell at you and be stressed out because of you.
Sure.
Like, I imagine there's some feeling of guilt there, if not at the very least, like wanting the alleviation of that criticism. You know, it's one thing if like you take risks for yourself and you have people running after your life, but when they run after your family, even for someone like Gil, that's a lot of pressure. And
true.
I'm not going to say I sympathize with him exactly, but I feel that emotional pressure, and I can understand that would make him do even more desperate things, which, you know, it's like this Gil seems like the kind of person who like just digs his hole deeper and deeper. Like, I bet you like whatever he's doing now to try to get out of his past misdeeds is just going to be even worse. And like,
of course,
like like Gil's going to end up dead probably because of what he's going to try to play around with.
Yeah. I mean, and this is probably my own bias because I've seen inside his head just like everybody else has. And like, I've probably watched one too many crime TV shows and podcasts and things like that, but Gil has a type, or Gil is a type, and I don't know if I can give him that benefit of the doubt, because like people like him who get into this kind of trouble and they, you know, think the ugly things that they do, like, because here's the thing, it'd be one thing if he was lying and just playing things off just to keep off the radar, but the ugly things that he said in the privacy of his own mind about Poppy tells me that, you know, that's how he truly feels and thinks. And he's externalizing a lot of his own actions to blaming Poppy for what he's done. And that is a classic move of a sociopath. Like, this is not my fault, this is your fault. And I'm not saying that like sociopaths don't have relationships, they do, but they have relationships that are focused solely on them. And so when somebody like their spouse or whatever kind of pokes and prods at them the way that his wife is poking and prodding at him here, that can make people do drastic things. And I know we talked about this yesterday, and I may be off my rocker with this, but like there's this whole sequence feels very past tense to me. And I have to question like why we haven't seen his wife up to this point. It may just be a plot thing, don't get me wrong. And like I said, I may be completely off my rocker, but I wouldn't put it past him to do something bad to his wife. And I sincerely wonder if his wife is alive. I'm like, I don't trust you, Gil. After I've seen inside your head and I've seen the ugly that floats around in there, I don't trust you worth a damn. And I will never give him the benefit of the doubt again.
I mean, but honestly, it sounds very reasonable to me too. Like I hear that as well.
You know, but it could be totally crazy. I mean, it's take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot we don't know. This is the first we're seeing of his wife. We don't really know what he's done or what's happened. We're just starting to crack open the layers of Gil, which I'll be honest with you, I didn't think that dolt had any layers, because I thought he was in the very beginning, like I didn't think anything of him. I was like, oh, he's just her goofy boss. And then like as time went on, I was like, I don't know. Like the minute he started testing Poppy with the notebook, that's when I was like, nah, dude, nah, I don't trust you. Not at all. And it's only gotten worse. So I just, either way, like, regardless of what I think about what happened to Gil's wife, like none of this is good. None of this is going to lead to anything positive for Poppy. And I'm just really worried because again, she's stuck in the middle of all of this. Oh god,
definitely it's like just building up. That's like the roller coaster train going up the hill.
Oh, I know. And I hate roller coasters, like actual roller coasters, not emotional roller coasters. I can handle those, but like, oh gosh,
you're angst.
I was talking to some of my friends after we read this episode, and I was just like, did anyone else like feel every one of Poppy's heartbeats? Did everyone else feel that tension and anxiety? Like, I have never had something in a 2D format give me an emotion like that before. Like, I've had books, like when I've read books, because it describes how the person feels, but when you have this medium where it's very visual, but there's no sound, and there's no like physical movement like with a film, and I'm just like, holy crap, like the emotions and everything, they just jump off the page to me. And I'm like, I have never had something where like I could sit inside Poppy's head and feel what she's feeling and think what she's thinking. Like, holy crap, this is so good. It's so masterful.
Yep, it's great. Definitely after episode 39, like
Yeah.
also I surprised myself. I literally was like on the floor for 3 hours. I'm not joking. Like I looked at the time. It was 3 hours of just like moaning and groaning and like sobbing. I thought I was cuckoo. I was like, you don't understand.
Oh God. I was inconsolable for like 3 or 4 days after episode 39. Like, I was like, don't talk to me. I cannot handle anything sad right now. Like, my heart is broken. I cannot deal. Just you know, it's worse than a book hangover, because it's like, I know in the end, like, these two are going to end up together. This is a romance. That's what happens in romances. The two main couple, like the two people in the main couple, they end up together. But like, sometimes I'm just like, how painful is it going to be to get there? And it's been painful. It's been good, but it's also had its painful moments, and that was one of them. Dear God. So this is our anxiety moment.
And it's just gonna get more anxiety.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. So everybody just go practice some meditation after this, go do some yoga, get some chamomile tea, because I'm gonna need it after this too. So good grief. I'm so excited for next week. I'm so on the edge of my seat.
I know. We always like, it's like, you know, I try to make the weeks go by faster in my head. The week go by faster in my head. I'm like, it's just a few days. But anyway.
It's true. It's true.
Thank you so much, Patty, for coming and like redoing this. So I appreciate it.
Well, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, my dear.
Yep. I'll catch y'all later. Y'all.
All right.
Catch you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.